In a federal courtroom where high-profile cases often capture the public's attention, one moment stood out, a moment that could shatter a carefully constructed empire. The world knew Sean Diddy Combs as the ultimate mogul, a music titan who built his empire on image, success, and family unity. But what happened when his own twin daughters were called to testify? The courtroom held its breath as Jesse and Delilah Combs, once seen as the perfect symbols of his family, walked in. But their testimony wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of defending their father, they took a stand that no one saw coming, a stand that would send shockwaves through the entire entertainment industry. What was it that they revealed? Why did their testimony leave Diddy visibly shaken as his image crumbled before his eyes? In this trial, the truth came from the very people who once believed in it the most, his own children. As the twins made their entrance into the courtroom, a chilling silence fell over the room. Jesse and Delilah, dressed in simple black pantsuits, walked with a quiet determination, their heads held high. They didn't look toward their father, not once. In a room filled with legal experts, media, and spectators, their decision to avoid eye contact spoke volumes. Diddy, usually unflappable, was not prepared for this moment. His composed expression faltered, morphing into one of confusion, then panic. The twins had been called as character witnesses, expected to humanize their father, perhaps even defend him. But what happened next was a betrayal so public and profound, it left everyone stunned. As they took their seats, Jesse and Delilah made an unprecedented move. They submitted written statements to the judge, statements that shifted the course of the trial. These weren't the statements Diddy's team had scripted for them. They weren't there to protect his image. Instead, they were there to speak their truth. The judge's reaction was immediate. Papers were handed to him, and his expression darkened as he read. What he saw, what the world would never hear, was too explosive to stay in that room. Within moments, the courtroom was cleared. No reporters, no spectators, just the core players left behind, standing in the aftermath of a bombshell that would rock not only Diddy's world, but the entire entertainment industry. The twins were speaking out, and nothing would ever be the same. As the courtroom emptied, the weight of what had just happened sank in. Diddy, once a towering figure of control and power, was now visibly rattled, whispering urgently to his attorneys. The twins, however, remained calm, hands folded in their laps, unwavering in their determination. What they were about to reveal was not just about their father, it was about the hidden world behind his image, a world that had been carefully curated for public consumption. In their statements, Jesse and Delilah recounted a childhood wrapped in privilege, private jets, luxury vacations, front row seats at fashion shows, the picture-perfect life that the world saw. But behind closed doors, the twins spoke of a different reality, one where their father's image as a loving, devoted family man was far from the truth. They described how, after their mother Kim Porter's tragic death in 2018, their lives became more isolated. They were often left in the care of staff, while Diddy focused on his career and his infamous parties. Rules were set. Certain areas of the house were off limits during these gatherings, and the twins began to notice disturbing patterns. Young women would arrive for parties, only to leave days later appearing shaken, disoriented, and silent. The twins testified about how their private lives were monitored. Phones, social media, everything scrutinized. They were told to smile for the cameras, post what they were told, and never question their father's behavior. Behind their father's controlled public persona was a deeply troubling reality, and for the first time, the world would hear it straight from those who had lived it. As their testimony continued, the twins grew more resolute, revealing even darker details of their experiences. They spoke of how, as they grew older, they began to notice the troubling behavior surrounding their father. Parties filled with young women, many of whom left visibly distressed. Diddy's moods, they said, were heavily influenced by his substance use, and the atmosphere in their homes was tense, unstable, and unpredictable. But perhaps the most disturbing revelation was about the system of control Diddy had built, one that permeated every aspect of their lives. Jesse and Delilah explained how they were forced to maintain a perfect image for the cameras, while their private lives were dictated by strict rules. Their social interactions were closely monitored. Friends were vetted to ensure they didn't ask too many questions. Conversations with peers about their father's behavior were reported back to Diddy's staff. The twins described how, as they grew older, they were made to feel complicit in the family's public persona, silencing their own concerns and feelings in exchange for luxury and protection. In one of the most chilling moments, the twins recounted discovering hidden cameras in their father's Miami home. They had stumbled upon a monitor displaying footage from various rooms, including bedrooms and bathrooms. When they confronted staff about it, they were told that Diddy liked to keep track of everything that happens in his homes. The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom, leaving the twins to realize the extent to which their father controlled every aspect of their lives and the lives of others around him. As the twins' testimony unfolded, it became clear that they were not just speaking out against their father's actions, but against the very system of control he had established within their family. They revealed how, as children, they had been isolated from each other and from the truth. Despite sharing the same father, the twins had barely known their half-siblings, only seeing them during carefully orchestrated family events or photo opportunities. Diddy had kept them separated, cultivating the image of a unified family while fostering division behind closed doors. Their lives were also shaped by what they called loyalty tests. Delilah recalled how, when they were 15, they discovered a text on Diddy's phone involving a young woman making troubling claims about their father. The twins had refused to touch the phone, but when Diddy returned, he asked if they had seen anything. They both lied, and later they realized it had been a test to see if they would remain silent about what they had found. It was moments like this that solidified the twins' growing awareness that their father had used fear, manipulation, and a carefully curated public image to keep them, and everyone around him, silent. For years, they had been pawns in his game, but now they were taking a stand to expose the truth. The turning point came when Jesse and Delilah began to realize the true nature of their father's actions. They spoke of how, over time, they had grown aware of the broader implications of the allegations against Diddy. As their father's legal troubles mounted and accusations from former associates began to surface, the twins couldn't ignore the parallels between the claims they were hearing and their own experiences at home. The first lawsuits against Diddy came as a shock, but soon their father gathered all his children and assured them it was all lies, people trying to tear down his empire. He urged them to stand united and reminded them that family protects family. But as more allegations surfaced, the twins began to question the loyalty they had been taught to uphold at all costs. Their father's attempts to manipulate them grew more intense. They were asked to participate in social media posts that painted a picture of the perfect family, to publicly defend him when rumors swirled, and to keep quiet about the truth they had seen. Jesse and Delilah realized they had been used not just as children, but as pawns in his image rehabilitation campaign. The final straw came when they overheard a conversation between Diddy and his lawyer, where they were casually discussed as tools to sway the jury. For the twins, it was the moment they knew they had to act. It was no longer about loyalty, it was about justice. They made their decision. They would testify for the prosecution, no matter the cost. As the twins made the difficult decision to testify against their father, they knew the consequences would be far-reaching. The pressure from Diddy's legal team intensified, with tactics aimed at coercing them into supporting his defense. They were presented with carefully crafted statements to memorize, depicting their father as the ideal, protective dad who had always been there for them. But as they read the words, they realized how far from the truth these portrayals were. They could not, in good conscience, lie about their experiences. The perfect family they had been forced to present to the world was a lie, and they refused to participate in perpetuating that image any longer. The twins began secretly recording their interactions with Diddy's legal team, documenting how they were coached on how to appear emotional, when to pause, and how to present their father in the best light. The rehearsals felt more like acting lessons than a search for the truth. It became increasingly clear to Jesse and Delilah that their father's entire defense strategy relied on manipulating their testimony to sway the jury. They were being treated as mere props in his attempt to avoid accountability. Finally, with the support of their maternal aunt and an independent attorney, the twins crafted their own statements detailing their personal experiences. They were ready to testify for the prosecution, fully aware that it would cost them their relationship with their father, their financial security, and potentially their entire family. But for the first time in their lives, they were choosing truth over loyalty. The night before they were scheduled to testify, Jesse and Delilah made one final attempt to confront their father. They called him on speakerphone together and told him they could no longer go through with the testimony his team had planned for them. They were no longer willing to defend him or lie for the sake of his image. Instead, they wanted to speak the truth, no matter the consequences. Diddy's reaction was immediate and intense. First came confusion, followed by anger, and then a chilling calmness. He reminded them of the loyalty they owed him, not just as their father, but as the man who had provided them with everything they had. He warned them that their decision would have dire consequences, not just for him, but for them. Your lifestyle, your future, your inheritance, none of that will be the same once you cross this line, he said, trying to appeal to their sense of security. When the twins remained resolute, Diddy shifted tactics, invoking their mother's memory and offering them greater financial incentives if they reversed their stance. But when none of that worked, he grew cold. If you think you've seen the bad side of me, you have no idea what I'm capable of when people betray me, he warned them. Despite the threats and manipulation, Jesse and Delilah stood firm in their decision. They would testify and they would speak their truth. As the twins took the stand the next day, their decision was clear. They were no longer pawns in their father's game. They spoke with unwavering determination, recounting the years of manipulation, control, and silence. What followed was not just a testimony, but a bold declaration of truth. Jesse and Delilah exposed the darkness behind the carefully curated image Diddy had spent years perfecting. In a courtroom that was once filled with tension, there was a new force at play: truth, courage, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for what was right. The entertainment world was left stunned. Diddy's empire, built on deception and manipulation, seemed to crumble in the wake of his own daughter's bravery. The twins, now free from the chains of their father's control, had chosen integrity over fame, loyalty to truth over silence. This courtroom drama didn't just shatter one family. It opened a broader conversation about celebrity families, the cost of perfection, and the true price of loyalty. The shockwaves of their testimony will be felt for years to come. If this story has left you questioning everything you thought you knew about fame and family, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This is just the beginning. We'll keep bringing you the stories the mainstream media won't. Stay tuned for more.